Somebody else has a comment, question? You're going to get on television. Maybe that's why you don't want to. Well, there's been a sensitivity. One of the things that have happened in this country, and in the world for that matter, is a sense that men should be more sensitive. So there has been a shift. Men have, for the most part, at least shifted a little bit. Maybe not all men, and maybe not all the time. But they have exhibited, for the most part, a little shift in sensitivity, the willingness to show emotion, the willingness to be more comforting. And, I mean, you should all say, yes, I believe that's true. Maybe you don't see that. But that is generally what's happened in society today. And the fact is that, as I said before, women have become more athletic, which only helps themselves, their relationships with their husbands, and with their children. They are healthier, and they are more conscious of that in themselves and in their children. So that they are, I think that's a good thing for civilization. And that's moving ahead. Unisex, we know unisex, I mean, sometimes you can't tell which is a guy and which is a gal today because they dress the same and talk the same. And some of the niceties that we remember we think was a much more genteel age, they're gone for the most part, right? I mean, do you see many girls in dresses going to university or high school? I don't think they wear dresses, do they? Unless they wear the mini skirts. That is something you can decry as being something that is lost, shifted backwards, but it is a trend, obviously, that all of these attention to athletics, attention to education, attention to similar things, the same things, has made a similarity in their dress and their talk and their actions. And women today, women always have traveled, but women travel today, the young kids travel alone. They don't travel in tour groups for the most part. They'll take one or two together or one alone and backpack all over, not only Europe now, but you see them on the TV, on the travel shows. They're backpacking in the Himalayas. They're backpacking in the jungles and in the deserts. To me, it's kind of daring, and I would never want my daughter to do it, except my daughter has done it. So the point is, you sit there and because you know in some societies that women still are looked at as second-class or third-class citizens. So you know that when they go to those countries, you caution them to be extra careful, because they still are not looked at as equals, and they are just, are available for being taken advantage of, and that's the net of it. So, but these girls go out anyway, right? They're traveling all over the world. So that's, in a sense, good. Now, there are tensions now, obviously, because of this, right? There are tensions on a lot of things. One is the whole idea of marriage. Women still want to get married for the most part, still want to have children for the most part. And here's an interesting article I read just the other day. Here's this beautiful girl from Thailand, and her picture was in the New York Times, November 20th. And she's just gorgeous, and she's very successful career in show business and modeling. She's 38, and nobody in Thailand for sure wants to date her or marry her, 38. But she's a gorgeous girl. She wants to get married. So at a certain age, women know that somehow they're in the opposite sex viewpoint. And if you're interested in that connection, there's still that prejudice about it. So, and there's the tension on the other side, from the women's side, that they are not married. Now, it used to be that if you were 25, you were a spinster. Now it might be 35 or 38 or 40. So that's an advantage, that's good. But the fact is that tension is still there. That tension, and the advantage is to the man. because we all know men can be 70 and bear children, right? Not too many guys 70, but there are some guys that are 70. Very few. You want me to introduce you to those guys, right? All right, and so I believe that everything is related to everything, so that when I talk about women and their rise to power, it does, as I've already mentioned, touch on religion, it touches on politics, it touches on economics, it touches on philosophy, it touches on so many different areas of consideration. And family and marriage obviously have changed considerably. Women today are working for the most part. The young women, God forbid, they would go into their 20s and 30s without having established a career. And with obvious reason, there are 51 or 52% divorces today. Now, this may or may not be a factor of freedom for women, but probably a percentage is based on the freedom for women, because women don't have to bear the insult and the domination of somebody they're not really in love with. It's not a marriage of convenience. They can go out and earn a living. And many women opt, even though it's difficult, to go out on their own and break up a marriage because that feeling of being married is not satisfying enough. So it is their freedom of women that probably have caused the increase in divorce rate. And maybe that's one reason why some religious people might say that's one reason we're against women having so much freedom, because in a way religion is against the divorces. So therefore that could be a convoluted philosophy that they may be, or point that they're making in that. But in truth, I think, in my view rather, in truth I think it's something good eventually. You have to understand, mankind, as we know ourselves to be, we're 50,000 or so years old. The dinosaurs ruled this earth, where we're standing now, for 200 million years. So we're like babies. We're all babies here. You may not think you're a baby, but you're all babies. Think about it. 50,000 years old. And what's history to us? History is ancient Egypt. The Bible, that's only 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years old. 5,000. The earth is 1 billion years old. The dinosaurs ruled for 200, 300 million years. We're just learning how to live as a species. So therefore, what I'm saying is, we're in a transition. We haven't, and we're, fortunately or unfortunately, we live in the last 100 years. All of us were born within the last 100 years, where the transition has speeded up even well beyond it ever had been before. In 100 years, what happened? You fly planes, right? We blow up worlds. You can only blow up a person at a time 100 years ago, but now you can blow up 50,000 or 100,000 or 1 million people, right, at any one time. So that is a negative, but that's a change in human society. But everything, all the medical achievements, lights, heat. I mean, it's 10 degrees outside. If this was 100 years ago, would we be sitting here talking? By what? Candlelight? Huddled over a central little fire? We'd all be huddled somewhere with blankets all over us, trying to stay alive. But yet we're all here comfortable. So change is here, and change is happening constantly. Constantly. And this power of women is one of the major changes in this century. And in the last 100 years, we're in a new century now. The question is, how fast is that going to progress? You know, they have developed different techniques for childbearing even, right? I just saw, what was it, Paula Zahn, what's her name? Paula Zahn, she's giving birth to twins that are by somebody else. I mean, women are going to be freer and freer as we develop into this century, because women will be giving birth later and later, or they'll donate their eggs, or they'll freeze their eggs and have somebody else, surrogate, have it implanted, and eventually there'll be farms, and you look at your baby in the farm, and because maybe they won't have any human intervention once the egg is fertilized. Is that, whoever thought there'd be the fertilization processes that they have now? 50 years ago, 70 years ago. Did you ever think of that? No. Yes.
Isn't it incredible?
Wait, 1 minute. I have a microphone coming your way.
I don't think you need a microphone with my voice.
Well, you might.
Isn't it incredible that in this last century, all these inventions, when I was a little girl, and that's a long time ago, people went on trolley cars and with horse and buggies, and now we go to the moon. It's incredible what has been discovered in this last century as opposed to the time before, which is billion years old. You're telling us how old it is.
Yes, absolutely. This is the transition that we have made as a species, and it seems like it's speeding up. I mean, all of us here feel it's probably faster than we would like, right? I mean, it is getting fast, right? It is getting living is getting very, very fast. And I don't know if the young people feel that way. We certainly do, right? But the fact is that change is here. But the point tonight is about women. You women, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and all those women to come in the future. That their struggle, and it is going to be a struggle for a while, I'm sure. I mean, men, for the most part, I think are afraid of women anyway. That's my view. You have a different view? That's fine. Maybe these other men would like to comment on that as well. But I think women have always had a way of wielding power without the obvious muscle power to dominate the situation. My wife and I was just given a gift, a surprise gift for my birthday this last week, and my daughter bought a ticket for me and my wife to go down for me to attend a fantasy baseball camp in Florida, and had a wonderful time. But my point is, on the way back, we were at the airport on Sunday, and the Patriots game against Indianapolis was on television, and all the men were watching. The women, very few women watching. But one guy was standing there with a baby, and his wife came by with another baby, and she said, "I'm going to sit down over here with a space, because there's no space here. Would you want to sit with me?" And he says, "No, I'll stay here." She gave him a look. She didn't say a word. She said not one word. She gave him a look. I was watching very carefully, and he stood there for about a minute. And I could see his mind. It was an exciting game. I could see his mind churning. He turned around and he went to see it. And he kept looking back at the screen, but he kept walking to be with his wife. So women have learned over the centuries how to wield a certain influence and power. Is that true in all societies? Has that been true in all levels of economic? Not really, but in a large part, women have learned how to handle that situation. But today, it's a little more direct. It's a little more direct. Women, one of the pressures on women today is that many women make more money than their husbands do. And there is a new trend, which you are aware of, and maybe you're party to some of this, the stay-at-home dad. It's a new title, right? Stay-at-home dad. As a matter of fact, I just saw a movie about that. The movie was with Dustin Hoffman. Did you see the movie? Right, the Fockers. He was a stay-at-home dad, right? And the point is, it's come into a comedy situation, into a movie situation, but it is, I've met people who are stay-at-home dads. Their wives they move now to be with the wife's job, where she gets a promotion, and he moves to be with the wife. So from that point of view, men have given up, those men have given up a certain amount of power.
They're making more money.
Pardon?
Maybe the women are making more money.
Well, that's correct. So the decision is made as a family, as a team, as a married couple, that it's not the husband. Like when I went to college, there were a lot of women transferring to the colleges near where their boyfriends were. And now, I think it's both ways. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask you what your opinion is. I'm close with several young adults
Yes,
who are in this, very much in this situation.
yes,
And I did observe in other things that the stronger the women get, the less strong the men get. And I've spoken with some of these young
Yes.
men, and I question them. What is your feeling when these girls, they said, oh, they come on so strong. They're not happy about it. I don't know what will be in 20 years from now, but right now, these young men have come from homes where daddy was the important one.
Right.
He was the older, he was the stronger, he was everything. The fathers have been their guides. The fathers have been their heroes. They wanted to be like their fathers.
correct.
Now, in their own world, the real world right now, for young people who are aged from about 28 to 35, they're very mixed up.
Correct.
They're afraid of the women.
I just said that.
So, well, I said.
Yes,
but
we
that
agree.
But is that good? And what do you see? You've studied the case
Right.
well. What do you see in, say, 30 years from now? What will these couples be like, and what will their world be like?
Well, first of all,
If the men are nervous about the women.
yes, absolutely.
That's not normal. 'Cause
Well,
the
it's not
women are
normal
not
to
nervous
us.
with their husbands. They
Well-
feel close. I'm talking even people our age.
Yes.
My age. You're very close with the other, you're a companion, but now the women are stepping over that line, and they are the breadwinners, and they are the important ones.
Some, you can't
And the
say
men
that.
are suffering for it. It's
Well-
not one or two people I'm talking about. These are groups that I have observed.
Right. Well, every condition exists. As a matter of fact, there's a growing trend. You're aware that there are more women than men in our society. Not only older women who have lost husbands, but younger women, there's more women in our society than men. So you have a lot, no, it's not wars, it's just the birth rate. To the point that many women today are marrying much younger men. It's not the older man.
So they're going to be mothers to these men?
Mothers are dominating, the dominating figure in the relationship. Or my point is, it's not as straightforward as it was before. I don't know the end result, what kind of children will come. It depends on how the partners educate their children, obviously. Because you have to understand, today, let me just get into that other aspect of it. Today, in marriages, there are blended families. Right today, you're mentioning one kind of a marriage. Today, you have many, 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 many marriages where their adopted children are not Caucasian, if they're from China. The biggest recent immigrants are really adopted girls from China, because girls, they don't want the girls in China, which is a big problem, because they're going to have a lot of men who won't have wives in China in the end. So that's another potential problem in China. The government now recognizes that. But the point is, right now, a lot of the children, and I see it all the time, everywhere I go, there are Caucasian families with Chinese babies. So that's another element of bringing up a family, not just women power situation, but that's another, it's a very complicated situation. The intermarriages, the interracial marriages, interfaith marriages, that is becoming a much more common element in our and everybody's society, not just here. Because the birth rates in Europe, for instance, are very low. And they have to find, if they want to at least get married, They have to find partners, and they're crossing all sorts of lines as well. But that you mention an actual potential problem in that men will feel less like men. But I just mentioned earlier that men are becoming more sensitive. They are becoming less like men. Women are gaining in testosterone and men are losing it. But that's unisex. That is where the trend is. You've hit it on the button. The trend is a unisex society in a way. Now, is that 1,000 years from now? What is it? We're not talking 20 years from now. 1,000 years, are we going to become like ants? But we don't know that. We don't know what turn that will take. And maybe that's why some of these people have a basic urge to fight and keep men men and women women in their place. So there is maybe deep inside us, a battle, maybe beyond what's in our brains, but in some people's very genes, a feeling that let's keep the status quo. Because the status quo is being questioned. I mean, I've had men managers and I've had women managers. There is a difference. I didn't like the women managers. Now, that didn't mean they were bad or that I was bad. It was something in my background I wasn't used to. I had women teachers when I was in grammar school, and that's it. But the point, and I have a boss, my wife, and so I have enough. And partner, but I didn't need a boss at work. But that has become a standard in many places. Yes, sir.
Sir, there is in nature a female spider that has sex with her mate and then eats him.
Yeah, the black widow. But
The
also,
question I have to ask you is, do you think that the spider society needs to be changed so that these two, male and female, should become more equal?
when I develop a talk on spiders, I will investigate that whole thought. Maybe we should change spiders. But that's true in nature in many more than just spiders, okay? There are many female animals who will eat their mates after they mate for nourishment, because the whole purpose of mating, obviously, is not for pleasure in societies of that kind. It's to propagate the species. So in many, many societies, the females will eat the males after mating process. Or the males will die. Bees, the males die after mating. So this is a standard, and if you're contemplating that, maybe that's what some men are afraid of. Well, we don't know. We're just young infants. We don't know. We don't know how the mind works and what our internals are in that respect. We don't know that, really. There's so much mystery still in humanity. And that's why there's so much research and development and thought going into the future. But the fact is, we are at a point, at a very, very interesting point in history, where women have become such a strong force. It's, I don't think, ever been this way. They have wielded power in many societies, but that were special queens and special noble women, special daughters of emperors. But we have, us commoners, where that has changed. And we have laws that say that's the way it should be. Without the laws, the women 80 years ago didn't have the vote. You couldn't own property. You couldn't do, what could you do? You couldn't do it. That's only 80 years ago. And it was only 40 or 50 years ago in many other societies in Europe. The first country to give women the right to vote was New Zealand in 1898, I think it was. So it's even that, that's only 100 years old, in the most advanced of societies at that time. So maybe it is the problem that we think as men, that we don't want to be devoured after we mate. But the point is, you can have a furtherance of society without males anyway. Because if you have women, and you, first of all, are you aware that semen can be artificially produced? You're aware of that? So we don't need men, we can produce artificially semen. Okay? And the point is that at some point they will artificially produce eggs as well. Because that's the nature of society, is to investigate and invent and uncover and develop. So at some